The Ridgewood Country Club's main dining room glimmered under crystal chandeliers, the silverware polished to perfection. It was the kind of refined, old-world elegance that made my extended family feel distinguished. Every table, draped in pristine cream linens, was carefully arranged for the Morrison family's annual reunion. This tradition had been alive for 23 years, started by great-uncle William to ensure the family stayed connected across generations. I sat at table 12, positioned near the service entrance where the staff moved with smooth efficiency between the kitchen and dining room. My placement wasn't random. For 4 years, ever since I left a high-profile finance career to pursue what my family dismissively called playing with military equipment, I had been assigned to the least desirable spots. The seating chart mirrored the family's internal hierarchy. Those with thriving law practices, medical careers, or long-established businesses claimed the tables near the head table, where great-uncle William presided like a king in his domain. The rest of us, considered less accomplished, were placed around the edges, close enough to participate but far enough not to interfere with important conversations. Can you believe Sarah actually showed up? My cousin Jennifer's whisper carried across several tables. She was 3 tables away with her husband, Mark, both dressed in the kind of expensive casual attire that announced, "We belong here." She quit Goldman Sachs, my cousin Michael added, casually adjusting his Rolex so everyone noticed. Some midlife crisis about finding her passion, I guess. A familiar wave of shame hit me as I sipped water and pretended to study the club's architectural details. The reality of my career was far more complex than they imagined, but I had long stopped trying to explain. 3 years ago, it became clear that no one wanted to understand. "You can't afford to be at this club," Jennifer continued, projecting herself as the family's social arbiter. "Membership fees alone are $50,000 a year, plus dining minimums and event charges." Others nodded in agreement. Cousin David looked concerned rather than malicious, but he offered no correction. Even Aunt Patricia, usually so kind, seemed uneasy with my presence here, I thought. "Maybe Sarah has a sugar daddy," Lisa said with a cruel laugh. "How else could she afford this?" Laughter rippled among nearby tables. I kept my gaze fixed on my salad, quietly cutting small pieces of mixed greens while they dissected my supposed financial struggles. "She drives that old Honda," Michael said. "Lives in a tiny apartment downtown. Whatever she's doing clearly isn't making money." "What does she even do now?" Jennifer asked, though not to me. "Defense contracting," Aunt Patricia answered quietly. "She mentioned military contracts last Christmas," Jennifer scoffed. "So she's selling paperclips to the Pentagon?" As the conversation continued, my family analyzed my career choices as if I weren't sitting 20 feet away. This had become a tradition, using me as a cautionary tale about the perils of leaving secure employment. What they couldn't understand, and what I no longer tried to explain, was that Titan Defense Solutions was far from a small firm struggling to sell office supplies. It had grown into a $2.8 billion defense technology company, creating advanced radar systems, satellite communications, and missile guidance technology for the U.S. military and allied nations. Yet my modest lifestyle led them to assume failure. I had founded Titan Defense 4 years ago after leaving Goldman Sachs, leveraging my knowledge of military finance and procurement. The company expanded from a $50,000 initial contract to one of the fastest-growing defense contractors in the country, handling projects for the Air Force, Navy, Army, and multiple NATO allies. Explaining this to civilians, especially when most projects were classified, was complicated. It was simpler to let my family make assumptions than risk revealing sensitive details. "I heard she's living paycheck to paycheck," Michael said, false sympathy coating his words. Not true. The loan they referenced was an investment from my parents, who had acquired a small stake in Titan Defense. That investment yielded a 400% return during our Series B funding round, but no one outside the immediate family knew. Jennifer continued. "Sarah was always the smart one, a Harvard MBA, fast track at Goldman Sachs, and then she abandons it all for some entrepreneurial fantasy," David added cautiously. "Some people need to learn the hard way that business ownership isn't for everyone." My phone buzzed discreetly. Margaret Wu, my executive assistant, calling repeatedly, something she never did unless urgent. I let it ring, unwilling to provide my family more ammunition about my so-called inability to separate work from social life. After the third buzz, Aunt Patricia suggested I take the call. Jennifer made a half joke about bills or rent. I excused myself and walked to the lobby. Margaret's voice was calm but urgent. The Boeing contract, Titan Defense's largest ever, worth $2 billion, was ready for immediate signing. The Pentagon fast-tracked approval, and Boeing's executives had flown in for a same-day ceremony. This contract would provide advanced radar systems for the next generation of military transport aircraft. I took a deep breath, considering my family still immersed in critiques of my career. One decision struck me as perfect. Margaret, bring the Boeing team to the main dining room. I want them to meet my family, I instructed. Are you certain? She asked, noting the high-profile nature of the contract. Yes. Give me 5 minutes to prepare them. Then bring the team to table 12, I replied. Returning to the dining room, I found the conversation about my failures still in full swing. Jennifer lectured an out-of-town cousin on the perils of leaving secure employment. I sat at table 12, phone silent, waiting. Before I could respond to Michael's question about the business emergency, Margaret appeared, walking across the dining room with her usual poise. She wore a charcoal gray suit, minimal jewelry, and carried a leather portfolio. Behind her trailed 4 sharply dressed professionals, each moving with the confidence of executives accustomed to decisive action. Conversations around the room slowed, diners noticing the group approaching with unmistakable authority. Sarah, Margaret said as she reached table 12, I hope I'm not interrupting your family gathering. The room fell noticeably quieter. My cousin's expressions shifted from mild curiosity to outright astonishment. Not at all, Margaret. What do you need? I asked, keeping my voice calm. Margaret introduced the 4 executives. This is James Chin, CEO of Boeing Defense, Space, and Security. Patricia Martinez, Senior VP for Military Contracts. Robert Kim, CFO, and Colonel Sarah Thompson, Pentagon Liaison for Advanced Defense Systems. A complete hush settled over the dining room. Forks paused mid-air. My family's chatter about my alleged failures evaporated in an instant. 50 relatives stared, incredulous, at a group that had seemingly arrived to conduct business at a family reunion. James Chin extended his hand with a warm smile. It's a pleasure to finally meet you in person. Your reputation precedes you. I shook hands with each executive, feeling the room's tension. The pleasure was mutual, I said. Patricia Martinez spoke next. Boeing's board is thrilled about this partnership. Titan Defense's radar systems are shaping the future of military aviation. Jennifer's jaw dropped. Michael leaned forward, coffee cup forgotten. Colonel Thompson addressed me. We expedited Pentagon approval because technology like yours demands swift action. Your radar systems give pilots capabilities we've never had before. Margaret opened her portfolio, revealing leather-bound contract documents. If you're ready, we can proceed with the signing. What contract signing? Great Uncle William's voice carried from the head table, breaking the stunned silence. Margaret announced, the $2 billion defense contract between Boeing and Titan Defense Solutions. Your company will supply advanced radar systems for next-generation military transport aircraft. The silence that followed was so complete, I could hear the air conditioning hum. $2 billion? Whispered Jennifer. James Chin turned to address both me and my family. This is one of the largest defense agreements Boeing has signed this year. Titan Defense's radar technology exceeds anything currently on the market. David stared as if I had grown another head. Sarah, you own Titan Defense Solutions? I founded it 4 years ago, I said simply. But Titan Defense Solutions is... Michael stammered, scrolling frantically on his phone. It's one of the top defense contractors in the country. We've been fortunate to work on critical projects, I said, downplaying the magnitude. Robert Kim, Boeing's CFO, spoke directly to my family. Your family member has built one of America's most innovative defense technology companies. These radar systems are revolutionary, detecting threats at ranges and accuracy levels unimaginable just 5 years ago. Colonel Thompson added, "The Pentagon considers Titan defense a strategic asset. Your technology protects American servicemen and women worldwide." Margaret placed the documents before me. "Shall we proceed with the signing?" I looked around at 50 relatives, absorbing the shock that the family's supposed underachiever was about to sign a $2 billion contract during Sunday brunch. "Actually, let me introduce the Boeing team first," I said. "It's an honor for all of us." For the next half hour, the executives mingled with my family, explaining radar systems, military aviation, and Titan Defense's innovations. Cousins asked questions about defense contracting, technology, and national security, their earlier judgments replaced by curiosity and admiration. As the signing concluded, Great-Uncle William approached. "I owe you a profound apology." "No, Uncle William. You don't owe me anything," I replied. "Yes, I do," he insisted. "We treated you as if you couldn't succeed, while you were building a company that serves our national defense." "Success can look very different from the outside," I said gently. Jennifer, flushed with embarrassment, joined us. "Sarah, I'm so sorry. I said terrible things about your finances." "You made assumptions based on appearances," I said. "I live modestly to reinvest profits into research and development. Every dollar saved funds technology that protects American service members. Why didn't you correct us?" Michael asked. I paused, considering the best answer while Margaret coordinated final contract details with Boeing's legal team. Because I wanted to know my family cared about me, not my net worth. "If I led every conversation with my company's valuation, would your interest be genuine or financially motivated?" David nodded quietly. "We failed that test. We focused on external markers of success instead of understanding what you were truly building." "That's understandable," I said. "Defense contracting isn't visible like other careers." Aunt Patricia asked about the company size. "Titan Defense employs 3,400 people across 12 facilities. We have contracts with all U.S. military branches and defense partnerships with the UK, Australia, Canada, and Japan." Jennifer was still processing. "And you founded this 4 years ago?" "I identified gaps in defense technology and leveraged my military finance experience to address them efficiently," I explained. James' chin returned briefly. "Thank you again for accommodating the schedule change." The contract signing went perfectly. "Titan Defense is one of Boeing's most valued partners, and your leadership is recognized across the industry." After the executives left, the family reunion resumed with a new energy. Discussions shifted from assumptions about wealth to topics of national security, technology, and innovation. As the executives departed, the atmosphere of the reunion shifted entirely. Conversations no longer centered on gossip or assumptions about my supposed failures. Instead, discussions revolved around the technology we'd just seen, national security, and the scale of Titan Defense's operations. The same cousins who had whispered about my finances were now asking questions about radar systems, military aviation, and defense contracting protocols. Great-Uncle William approached, his expression sincere. "Sarah, I owe you an apology," he said, his voice steady but heartfelt. "You don't owe me anything." "Uncle William," I replied calmly, but he shook his head. "Yes, I do," he insisted. "For years we treated you like someone who couldn't succeed in the real world, while in reality, you were building a company that protects our servicemen and women. We judged success by the wrong standards." "Success can look very different depending on perspective," I said. Jennifer, standing beside him, looked embarrassed but attentive. "Sarah, I'm truly sorry," she said quietly. "We made assumptions about your financial situation." "You assumed based on appearances?" I replied. "I live modestly so I can reinvest profits into research and development. Every dollar I don't spend on luxury goods goes directly into building better systems that save lives." "Why didn't you correct us earlier?" Michael asked, his tone curious rather than accusatory. I considered how to answer carefully, glancing at Margaret as she finalized paperwork with Boeing's team. "Because I wanted to know that my family's care was genuine, not financially motivated." If every conversation started with my company's valuation, would you have been interested in me or in the money? David, who had been quietly observing, nodded. We failed that test. We focused on visible markers of success instead of understanding what you were creating behind the scenes. That's understandable, I said. Defense contracting doesn't offer visible signs like corner offices or fancy cars. It's invisible work, yet critical. Aunt Patricia asked about the company's scale. Titan Defense employs 3,400 people across 12 facilities. We have active contracts with all branches of the U.S. military, plus international partnerships with the UK, Australia, Canada, and Japan. Jennifer was still processing. And you built all this in just 4 years? Yes, I said. I noticed gaps in defense technology and used my experience in military finance to develop the systems efficiently. My focus was on solving critical problems rather than following conventional measures of success. James Chin, who had returned briefly, added, "Thank you again for accommodating our schedule change." The signing went smoothly. Titan Defense is one of Boeing's most valued partners, and Sarah's leadership is recognized throughout the industry. As the family reunion continued, conversations no longer revolved around appearances. My relatives were genuinely curious about the work we did, how it impacted national defense, and the innovations behind our radar systems. Questions about career paths, technology, and global security replaced whispers about my finances. Later, in a quieter moment, Jennifer approached me privately. "Sarah, can I ask something personal?" "Of course," I replied. "Are you happy with your work? With the company you've built?" I looked back at the country club, at the bustling staff cleaning up after the event, then at my modest Honda parked among luxury vehicles. I wake up every morning knowing that the technology we develop helps protect service members in dangerous situations. When our radar systems help a pilot evade a missile, or our communications equipment enables soldiers to coordinate safely, that's the most fulfilling work I can imagine. Jennifer considered this. "That sounds like happiness." "It is," I said. "Financial success allows us to invest in better technology and hire top engineers. But true satisfaction comes from knowing our work saves lives." She nodded, her expression thoughtful. "I'm sorry for everything I said today, and for assuming you couldn't afford to be here." "You were judging by appearances, like most people do," I said. "It's natural to measure achievement by visible lifestyle choices, but I was building something extraordinary while you were focused on superficial markers. What mattered most was unseen work, and it was critical work." 6 months later, Titan Defense secured a $4.7 billion missile defense contract, one of the largest in U.S. history. The announcement dominated national news, highlighting my transition from Wall Street to defense technology. At that year's family reunion, I was seated at table 1 beside Great-Uncle William. But more importantly, the conversations focused on understanding one another's work instead of judging by appearances. During his closing toast, Great-Uncle William said, "Sarah has taught us that the most meaningful success often happens quietly, where others cannot immediately see it. True achievement is measured by the problems you solve, not the possessions you display." As we raised our glasses, I reflected on the journey from whispers of financial failure to the recognition of meaningful work. Sometimes families need dramatic moments to appreciate that a quiet, underestimated member may be accomplishing the most critical work. With patience and dedication, others eventually recognize that what appears to be failure can actually be the foundation of extraordinary accomplishments. The most meaningful recognition doesn't come from awards or headlines. It comes from family members who learn to measure success by impact and contribution, and who understand that the person they once underestimated may be the one safeguarding what matters most. As the reunion wrapped up and family members gathered their belongings, the atmosphere had shifted entirely. The casual chatter that once centered on appearances and whispered judgments now carried genuine curiosity and respect. Conversations explored the strategic impact of defense technology, innovations in radar systems, and the importance of national security. My cousins, once quick to mock, were now engaged, asking thoughtful questions and showing sincere interest in the work I'd devoted myself to. Great-Uncle William approached me again, a small smile on his face. "Sarah, you've changed how we think about achievement. I can only apologize for underestimating you all these years." "Thank you, Uncle William," I said. "Understanding isn't always immediate. People often judge based on what they see rather than what actually matters." Jennifer lingered nearby, quieter than usual. "Sarah, seeing what you've accomplished, I realize how wrong I was. I judged your life by markers that mean nothing in the bigger picture." I nodded. "It's easy to focus on visible signs. Luxury cars, big houses, fancy vacations. But the work that has real value is often invisible. What we build, what we protect, what we solve, that's what matters." Months passed and Titan Defense continued to grow. Our projects expanded internationally, our workforce increased, and our technology became a recognized standard in advanced defense systems. The company's financial success was significant, but it never became the measure of personal fulfillment. Every breakthrough, every innovation, every life saved reinforced the purpose behind the work. The next family reunion reflected this new understanding. I was seated at table 1, next to Great-Uncle William, and the atmosphere was different from all previous gatherings. Instead of questioning my choices, family members asked for insights, guidance, and explanations about the defense industry and the strategic value of our work. The focus shifted from criticism to curiosity, from assumptions to engagement. During the final toast, Great-Uncle William raised his glass and addressed the family. "This year we've learned a valuable lesson. Success isn't always loud or visible. Sometimes it's quiet, steadfast, and impactful. Sarah has reminded us that the most important work often happens behind the scenes, shaping the world in ways we might not immediately recognize." I reflected on the journey from that first brunch, when whispers of financial struggle filled the dining room, to this moment of understanding. The transformation wasn't about wealth or recognition. It was about showing that meaningful work matters more than appearances. The validation came not from headlines or external applause, but from the acknowledgement of those closest to me, who finally understood the depth and purpose of what I'd built. Jennifer approached privately again. "Sarah, are you still happy with your path?" she asked, genuine curiosity in her voice. "I am," I said, glancing at the smiling faces around the room. "The work saves lives, pushes technology forward, and challenges me every day. That fulfillment is beyond measure," she smiled softly. "I think I finally understand. It's about impact, not image." "Yes," I said. "And sometimes the hardest lesson for others is learning to see beyond what's visible." For me, patience and persistence were crucial, not to prove them wrong, but to focus on what truly matters. Years later, Titan Defense would continue to secure major projects, innovate cutting-edge defense systems, and grow into a global leader in military technology. But the lessons from that family brunch remained. Recognition for meaningful work doesn't always arrive immediately. Often it comes quietly, through understanding, respect, and acknowledgement from those who matter most. The experience also reshaped how I viewed personal and professional success. Real accomplishment isn't measured by luxury or visibility. It's measured by the problems you solve, the lives you protect, and the contributions you make that endure beyond appearances. For me, that meant building a company that strengthened national security and empowered engineers to innovate. By the following reunion, the transformation in my family was clear. Conversations centered on curiosity, learning, and mutual respect. The whispers of doubt were gone, replaced with recognition of effort, dedication, and purpose. My story became a quiet reminder that true success often hides behind modesty, diligence, and integrity. That Sunday afternoon at Ridgewood Country Club had begun with judgment, skepticism, and quiet ridicule. It ended with acknowledgement, respect, and the realization that the person who seemed like the least accomplished was, in fact, shaping outcomes far greater than anyone had imagined. In the years that followed, the lesson endured. Families and colleagues alike learned that visible markers are fleeting, but impact, innovation, and contribution are lasting. By remaining focused on meaningful work, I ensured that the value of what I created would ultimately speak louder than appearances ever could. And when it did, it resonated not just within the industry or the news, but in the hearts and minds of those who had once doubted. Sometimes the quietest person is accomplishing the most. Sometimes patience and dedication reveal a truth that loud criticism cannot obscure. And in those moments, recognition is not just deserved, it is transformative, reshaping how people understand success, contribution, and the power of unseen work.